Hello there and welcome to Silverstone for what is sure to be an action-packed finale to the end of the 2005 British GT Championship. Now, Andrew Kirkcaldy and Nathan Kinch wrapped up the title at Mondello Park, but the battle is still open for second. Tim Mullen and Chris Niarchos are currently second in the points and have to be favourites to hang on to that position. But so far this year, they haven't won a race. And just as it looked like they might do it, their luck ran out again at Mondello Park.
Yeah, it was just a silly mistake on my behalf. I was on my outlap. Turn 3 at Mondello is a bit of a blind right-hander. It's very, very slow. And I just went in, I sort of misshifted on the way down. The car effectively was out of gear as I turned in, and the back then was very loose, and it just did a very slow pirouette, but that pirouette basically cost me the race. So it's just a stupid mistake, but just one not to make again.
So after that disappointment, what's the plan for this weekend?
For this last weekend at Silverstone, we just want to concentrate and try and make sure we get second in the championship. So it'd be a bit silly if we throw that all away just to push for a win in this last weekend. So I think for us, really, this weekend is just about sort of 2 good solid finishes, hopefully.
Right behind the Ferrari pairing are a couple of Porsche teams that are desperate to steal that second place in the championship.
We're not just aiming to be the quickest Porsche, although we do need to hold that mantle to get second in the championship, but it'd be great to get more wins.
It's between Embassy and us for really best of the rest behind the Ferraris and the honour of being the leading Porsche. They're 2 points up on us at the minute, but our car's really good, so we'll give it our best shot today.
You know, Mike Jordan and Mickey Kane, they know what they're doing, and the team have got a lot of experience, whereas Embassy, it's their first year running this car, so I think they've done a great job to get to grips with it that quickly and make the car fast. And yeah, we had some good racing, good dicing.
You know, Michael and I have had the same attitude all year long. Just keep your head down, keep driving it as fast as you can and see what comes to you.
This weekend also sees the return of former Boyzone star Shane Lynch. He proved himself to be quite a handy racer back in 2003, but we haven't seen him since. So what has brought him back?
And what's brought me back basically is a chap called Hector Lester, which is running Christian's Motorsport race team, and that's a Ferrari GT 360. And he just invited me along as a Christian man myself, you know, and I accepted the drive. I luckily had a weekend off. The main reason why I've not kind of been around in motorsport for the last 2 years, it's just a busy lifestyle at the minute, and I don't want to come unless I'm committed to a full championship. This weekend I'm just doing a guy a favour.
There must be a few sparring partners that are still racing.
Listen, no controversy here. I never had sparring partners. I like to believe I was a gentleman in my driving and a good sportsman, and I don't think I've really had any rivalries as such, but there's a lot of faces still here, and I mean, I'm not up with the GTs, I'm in a GT3 today, so I'm kind of down the grid, fighting my way up, hopefully.
This weekend's first race happened yesterday afternoon, so here's Ben to bring us up to date.
Despite a dry qualifying session, conditions were pretty wet here as race 1 got underway. Nathan Kinch started from pole position, with Neil Cunningham alongside in the Embassy Porsche. Starting on the front row was a definite advantage, as the spray in the midfield made visibility virtually negligible. Thankfully, though, they all got through the first corner relatively calmly. Sadly, a little further on, an incident involving Jamie Smythe in the Ferrari and the Porsches of Sean Edwards and Alex Mortimer resulted in Mortimer's door taking flying lessons, and all 3 cars would retire early. While Kinch led Cunningham out in front, the third-place battle was between Chris Niarchos and Mike Jordan. It saw the Porsche ahead for a little while, but then Niarchos reclaiming the spot. Conditions were not improving, with steady rain throughout, and a number of drivers went off. This was Stephen Brady in the Ultima, and thankfully he was not collected by any other cars, and nor was Hector Lester, although Richard Hay had to take pretty quick avoiding action. Hector went on to finish 7th in GT3, whilst even the rallying experience of the Jones brothers wasn't enough to keep them on the straight and narrow. Following a late race crash when the ABG Porsche hit the stricken track speed car, the safety car was scrambled, leaving only a couple of racing laps once the track had been cleared. Michael Caine in the white and blue 77 car thought he'd spotted a chance to pass Ben Collins for 3rd. But he got a little too carried away and spun his hopes away. He would recover to finish in 5th place. Andrew Kirkcaldy brought the number 35 Ferrari home for win number 10 of the year. And Tim Mullen backed him up with 2nd in the number 34 car. Third place for Cunningham and Collins kept them ahead of Jordan and Kane in the points, while James Murphy and returning former GT champion Ian McKellar Jr. won in GT3.
Well, it's the final round of the 2005 British GT Championship here at Silverstone, and second and third place have still to be decided. In race one, the two Porsches came very close. They were battling hard. They'll be doing it again. Here's Ben.
Andrew Kirkcody's on pole, which means that the Kinch-Kirkcody Ferrari's been on pole for every single race this year. Tim Mullen has qualified second, while the Eclipse Motorsport Mosler's third, to be started by Phil Keane. The Embassy Porsche is fourth on the grid, and the two drivers have a 4-point cushion over Jordan and Kane for third in the championship. Top GT3 car is that of Stuart Mosley, backing up the pole position taken by co-driver Phil Quaife in the first race, while Andy Britnell's car starts third in class, driven initially by Damien Faulkner, and Andy has just a 1-point margin for second in the GT3 Championship. So various little battles to be decided in this final race of the year at Silverstone. Thankfully, conditions are very much better than they were for race one. We've got a dry track, we've got some sunshine glinting off the cars, and we're all set to go racing in the last British GT race of 2005. Will Tim Mullen and Chris Niarchos be able to take their first win of the year? Well, we're about to find out. Away they go, and it's Andrew Kirkcody from pole position. Tim Mullen going with him down towards Copse Corner. They touch, and look at the Mosler on the inside. It's three abreast. Oh no! Round goes Tim Mullen. Would you believe it? When things go wrong, it's always for the Irishman. We're on board with Ben Collins, and actually he's made a great getaway here. Attacking, I think he's come up to second. No, briefly back down to third as Kirkcody reclaims second.
And coming into the corner there, Phil Keane runs really wide, took too much curve at the first part of the Beckett's complex and ran wide onto the gravel on the outside. On board now with Collins, they make their way down onto the Tower Straight.
Yeah, did you see briefly Stuart Mosley in the GT3 car got past him. Now he's running in, what's that, third place overall, the blue and white car. He goes right out to the edge of the track there, and he's on the outside of the Eurotech car. He's got the Nissan behind him at the moment. Ooh, whoa, 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 did they hit? Oh, that was close. Anthony Reid spins as a result.
I'm not sure they touched. There was no damage on the left front corner of the Nissan there, but Anthony rejoins. Maybe a little bit of damage there just on the wheel, but very, very close for Stewart as he came out of the Abbey hairpin, and he's still in the thick of it now as they come into the complex.
Yes, he is, but Piers Maserati in the number 25 car, the green and white cars just got past him. We're on board with Shane Lynch. Now remember, he's sharing with Hector Lester here this weekend. Oh, he's trying to fight his way through traffic, but it's proving to be a little difficult. It's very bunched up through Luffield.
It certainly is, and with Tim Mullen and also Phil Keane in the Mosler ahead of Stephen Warburton there in the RPM Porsche, they'll be battling their way through the lower running GT3 cars, so really is action-packed as they complete the first lap.
There's Piers Maserati and Stuart Mosley, and right behind them Tim Harvey. We're riding with Tim now as he gets alongside Stuart Mosley. Great race between these three Porsches. Now then, can he do anything about Piers Maserati, who's just ahead, bouncing over the curbs, trying to keep it tidy?
Absolutely, as you come into the second part of Beckett's, it's really important to reach the clipping point on the inside and then get a good clean run out through the Island S's here onto the back straight, and Tim's doing a great job there to keep up with Piers.
Now we're back to the GT2 cars. The two Porsches battling for third place in the championship. I don't think either of them's going to take second because the Mullen-Niarchos Ferrari only needs 1 point. The Jones Brothers Porsche, number 22, that's marred in amongst the GT3 cars, so they haven't got away terribly well in this race. And meanwhile, we've still got this very close battle between Piers Maserati, then Tim Harvey, and then Stuart Mosley as they come through the left-hander at Priory.
This is great racing from the first three in GT3, Ben. So often in GT3 we've seen them get quite strung out over the initial stages, but proper touring car style racing now from the first three. Great.
Yeah, it's good stuff. Watch the number 23 car. That's actually been driven by Damien Faulkner, the new British Carrera Cup champion. He's driving with Andy Britnell here this weekend, and a good chance for Andy to claim second place in the GT3 points. But right behind him is Tim Mullen, who spun on the opening lap in the Ferrari. That's a GT2 Ferrari, one of the fastest cars on track, obviously, and Tim is now trying to reclaim a top spot.
He is pushing very hard coming into Copse Corner there. Tim can carry a huge amount of speed to the corner with the downforce that Ferrari generates, and on board we're now through the same corner with Stephen Brady in the Ultima.
Yeah, Stephen Brady, who had a spin in the wet conditions, driving solo here this weekend, but hopefully a bit happier with the car in these drier, more clement conditions that we've got for race number 2, and just tucked in behind the Ferrari there.
That was a huge spin we saw him have just at this section there yesterday, so no, I'm sure he's enjoying the dry conditions today. And Stuart Mosley there diving down the inside of Tim Harvey at the hairpin and makes a place and goes back up into second in the GT3 battle, and immediately he's defending hard on the run into bridge.
Yeah, this is good close racing, isn't it? Tim Harvey, is he going to go for the lunge down the inside? No, Stuart Mosley's got that well covered. Piers Maserati in front of them. Remember, Piers Maserati has won the GT3 Championship, although not driving the car he's racing here this weekend. It's all been a bit of chopping and changing for this final race. He'd already wrapped up the title, so he's now in a track speed car here this weekend. Back on board, though, with Tim Harvey. Maserati taking a wider line. That's just his slightly different approach, I think, to Luffield.
It is. Watching the different lines and both styles, three completely different styles. You can see Mosley, who's second in that little battle, very sideways in his Porsche, yet Tim Harvey a bit more conservative in his, but both proving very, very effective.
Vauxhall Monaro and the Nissan racing at the moment. Anthony Reid trying to climb back up the order after that spin that he had. And it's good to see James Brodie in the Vauxhall Monaro car he's sharing with the returning Max Griffin this weekend. Now, Steve Brady still trying to work his way up through the order. He's in a GT2 car, but he had to start at the back, so not surprisingly, he's a bit quicker than the cars around him. Further up, we've got those two Porsches that have been battling so hard together all season long, and it looks like they're going to carry on that kind of battle once again. Ben Collins in the Embassy car, Michael Caine in the Eurotech car. We're now riding, though, with Shane Lynch and the Ferrari. Now, ahead is the Morgan. That's being driven by Ollie Bryant, and Bryant still in with a shout of taking second place in the GT3 Championship, as is Hector Lester, who shares that car with Shane Lynch. So that is an important little dice that's going on. Meanwhile, Tim Mullen has caught up with that lead GT3 invitation class battle. Piers Maserati, and then right behind him, Stuart Mosley. And Tim Mullen has now caught up and he's trying to nick through on the inside. I think he should do it.
He certainly does. Nice clean pass from Tim. Stuart just moved ever so slightly wide to let Tim through on the inside. Two work colleagues from Silverstone, so they know the place very, very well. And Stuart just moved wide and Tim came through on the inside. And Tim will now be looking to get past Piers, who mysteriously seems to be defending into Copspen when he's in a different class.
Yeah, it seems a bit unnecessary. He is running in fourth place overall. Perhaps he wants to hold on to a really top overall position, but there's no real way he can do that up against the Ferrari. Surely the Ferrari will still not finding it terribly easy to get past Piers Maserati. Now he slips down the inside and he's through into fourth, and Maserati better watch out because he's so intent on not letting the Ferrari through. He might let the others build up some momentum behind, and in fact, look, there's the Mosler that suddenly nicked through, and following him, I think Stuart Mosley, has got ahead of Maserati, as has Tim Harvey.
Exactly as you say, Ben. I think he was just too focused on keeping the GT2 cars behind him, and that's cost him. So he's gone from P1 in the class down to P3, and you can see the Jones brothers have got by him as well.
Oh dear, all going wrong for Piers Maserati. Look at this good battle, though, between the two guys who went in three abreast along with Andrew Kirkcaldy into Copse first time around, and now they're both trying to fight their way back up through the field. Phil Keane made a separate mistake up at Beckett. Let's just take a look at that first lap again.
Oh, and into the first corner there, Copse 3 into 1, simply doesn't go. Tim loses out, gets forced off onto the outfield, has a spin. Fortunately, there's no gravel there to collect him. He just spins and rejoins, and coming into Maggots, Phil takes too much curb, and beyond the Ferrari, he just runs wide, and he's actually into the gravel now. And, real costly mistake there on the opening lap from Phil Keane.
Yeah, that's a great shame. We've seen him put in some great performances. Into the pits early, though, comes the Ultima. Looks as though they've got some problems with this car. At least they managed to get it back out, but it's not proving to be a very lucky weekend for Masters Motorsport. The race is currently being led, remember, by Andrew Kirkcaldy. This is the battle further back between Tim Mullen and Phil Keane, both of them on the recovery drive, trying to get slightly further up the order. Steve Hyde will be taking over from Phil Keane. Stay with us to find out how he gets on. Welcome back to Silverstone. It's the last round of the British GT Series 2005. Look at Piers Maserati's car, number 25 there. Looks as though there's some damage to the rear.
Yeah, I think Tim Mullen just clipped him ever so lightly as he went by him at Beckett's, and the Porsche bumpers are really fragile, and no major harm done there. It'll just be a slight aerodynamic disadvantage, but a real battle going on still between Tim Mullen and Phil Keane there in the Mosler.
Yeah, that's the race for fourth place. Those two were dicing for the lead on the opening lap, and things went wrong for them. Up ahead of them is the race that's going on for second between the Embassy Porsche and this car, the Eurotech car, number 77. Now remember, only 4 points separating the two pairs of drivers coming into this final race, but it is in the Embassy team's advantage, so this car really needs to get ahead of the blue and red Porsche to make a difference in terms of the championship standings, and at the moment Ben Collins is doing just enough to hold on to second.
He is. It's really good to see the two Porsches running so close together for pace. In the last few races, Eurotech really have pulled Embassy back in the mid-section of the season. Embassy seem to have the upper hand with that car, but in the last few races I remember seeing Mike Jordan dicing with Neil Cunningham at Mondello Park, and it's really good to see them running so close today.
Well, this is another close battle. Aaron Scott versus Steve Warburton, Ferrari versus Porsche, and that's in the GT3 class. Again, we come back to this race for second, and it's nothing to choose between them, and I think they're also being caught by that race for fourth between Tim Mullen and Phil Keane right behind. Now, we saw Tim Harvey right in the mix for the lead of the GT3 Invitational class earlier on in this race. He's still right up there as Stuart Mosley had to take avoiding action. What was Jones up to there?
The Jones torpedo was going for him. Stuart just stayed wide and stayed out of trouble there. Good piece of driving from Stuart Mosley.
Well, so far so good for Stuart Mosley. He leads that class, but he's got the Jones Brothers GT2 Porsche, a theoretically faster car right behind him. But Tim Harvey's there too, and we're on board with Tim as he tries to take advantage of the Jones car. Maybe the GT3 car a little bit more nimble through this section.
Absolutely, and Stuart making the most of that and pulling away at the front of the pack while Tim was being slightly held up by the more cumbersome GT2. And as you said before, the battle for fourth is now almost on the battle for second.
Yeah, we're going to get the four cars all together, I think, fairly quickly here. So Ben Collins is going to have his work cut out to stay ahead of not just one Porsche, but also a Ferrari and the Mosler right behind. Again, a good contrast in the different makes of car. Remember, though, it's still a Ferrari that leads. It's the number 35 Ferrari of Andrew Kirkcaldy and Nathan Kinch. Andrew at the wheel at the moment, the car that has dominated the championship this year, and it's currently leading by quite a decent margin. But Mullen has caught right up to the back of the Eurotech Porsche, and now this is going to be a four-way battle.
It is. It's nose to tail as they come down towards Bridge and into Bridge corner now itself. They're nose to tail. Seems a great shame we haven't got any footage of Andrew Kirkcaldy though at the head of the field. He's lapping between a second to a second and a half faster than any of the other cars in this little pack, so he's doing a really good job.
Yeah, he's, again, stretching out his advantage. But look at this, Michael Caine in the white and blue number 77 Porsche really now has his mirrors filled by Tim Mullen. And Tim, after that spin through Copse on the first lap, where really he was just squeezed out, there wasn't enough space for three cars to go through, and it always seems to be poor old Tim Mullen, or maybe Chris Niarchos, his co-driver, that lose out in these 50-50 situations. Well, they did in the first lap, but now he's on the attack, trying to claim third place from the number 77 car of Michael Caine. But watch out for Philip Keane, because he's right there as well. And surely we're going to get another moment here of three cars all trying to thread their way into one corner together. They all behave themselves into Beckett's corner, and Michael Caine now dropping away a bit from Ben Collins as a result.
Yeah, as Michael starts to defend from Tim, that's given Ben the opportunity to just stretch away at the head of that little pack, and Phil Keane's looking really ominous there on the way into the hairpin. He's pulling one way then the other, and Michael having a big look in his mirrors there, seeing what Tim Mullen's up to behind him.
Yeah, Phil Keane sharing this Eclipse Motorsport Mosler, the red, blue and white car, with Steve Hyde, and Steve will be watching anxiously to see what's going on. They had a great run going here at Silverstone on the Grand Prix circuit earlier on this year, and Phil again getting very close on the exit of Bridge corner, a little bit wide there from Tim Mullen. That's left a slight door open here, and straight into it goes Phil Keane.
That's all Phil ever needs, is just half a chance, and coming round Priory, Tim just sneaked a little bit wide, and bang, Phil was into the gap.
The American-built V8 muscle car, the Mosler, the engine sitting in behind the driver, as it does in the Ferrari. But Phil Keane seems to have adapted to this car so quickly this year, and he's put in some startling performances. He's now up into fourth place, and he's the one putting pressure on Michael Caine.
And it'll be interesting to see if Phil can now get past Michael in the Eurotech car, but no, he runs a little bit wide coming out of Copse there, and running over the matting onto the grass there has allowed Tim to close right back up behind the Mosler.
This is very even-handed racing, isn't it? Between three of the top cars in the championship, three different makes, three different teams, and nothing much to choose between them. It is allowing Ben Collins here in second place to just open up his advantage slightly. Lights ablaze on the Mosler, but Michael Caine didn't see the need to go to the inside. Good, confident driving from Michael Caine, not being pushed into a little mistake, not as yet anyway.
No, both drivers in very, very different cars now, but remember they both came from the TBR Tuscan Challenge a few years ago, which is a ferocious championship, developing great car control. And Phil's down the inside, Priory corner again. He got Tim there last lap, he's got Michael, and Michael's lost another place now to Tim Mullen, who just followed the Mosler through.
Well, that's the way it goes, isn't it? You wait one little mistake, or not even that, you just leave the door open, and with guys of this kind of caliber behind you, cannot afford to do that. Well, Michael had to choose. Did he leave the door open and risk that pass being made, or did he take a tight line but then risk going slowly? That's always the choice a driver has to make, and well, Michael made that choice, got 2 places taken from him in virtually one go. Now then, coming through, Adam Wilcox in the Ferrari, battling here with Damien Faulkner in the number 23 Porsche. Faulkner, the new British Porsche Carrera Cup champion in his first GT race of the year, and having a good old dice with the Ferrari, as we meanwhile move back to second place man, Ben Collins. And I say second place because I wonder for how much longer. Look how quickly Phil Keane has caught him.
Absolutely, within a lap there, Phil's really closed the gap down as they come out onto the back straight. Little look, second look there from Ben, and see the Mosler on the left-hand side just moving ahead of the Porsche.
Yeah, but he's on the inside, Collins. Can he hold that line? If he can, he should retain the position, as long as he then can still get a good exit. Well, it's very even-handed. Phil Keane's trying to move to the inside to get the run into Bridge Corner, and he gets a great run there out of Abbey. How did he do that?
Great straight line speed from the Mosler there, really paid dividends. He got a good clean run out of the hairpin, and fantastic pass move there from Phil Keane.
So Phil Keane up into second and up into third. Here comes Tim Mullen. Ferrari passes the Porsche, and Ben Collins has gone from second to fourth. So ironically, he will now have Michael Caine, no doubt, not too far behind him once again. That's how they started a few laps ago. But the 2 recovering cars, the Mosler and the Ferrari, have fought their way through. Phil Keane slightly better than Tim Mullen because he also managed to get past the Ferrari while doing it. Now in the pits, and earlier than it should be, Aaron Scott's Ferrari. Jamie Smythe having a look around, but it's not time yet for the pit stop window to be open, so they've obviously got a problem on that car, and they'll hope to sort it out. Meanwhile, there's Damien Faulkner in car number 23, hoping that he can help Andy Britnell to take second place in the GT3 Championship here. They've got a 1-point advantage coming into this race over Hector Lester and Oliver Bryant, and those 2 guys are slightly further down. Of course, Shane Lynch driving Hector Lester's car at the moment. Ollie Bryant is in the Morgan, but not making as much progress as he has done on some occasions. Back on board here with Ben Collins, and they're lapping the Vauxhall Monaro. Just up ahead of him, Tim Mullen's gone through, and the Monaro quite wide through Luffield. Collins able to go past.
He slips through on the inside very easily there. The Monaro stays wise and allows him to come through, and as the laps go by, the Mosler and the Ferrari ahead getting smaller and smaller and smaller in Ben Collins' windscreen.
Gary Britnell just being lapped as well in another of the Motorbase Quaife cars, sharing that with Richard Hay. But there is our second place man coming through. It is Phil Keane. He'll be handing over to Steve Hyde, remember. And I wonder when they're going to decide to make their pit stop. They have a fairly wide pit window when they are allowed to come in and make their driver change. But Phil Keane is the slightly faster of the pairing in this car, so they'll want him out there for a good long time. Keep him pushing on hard. Back on board with Ben Collins. He shares, of course, with the Kiwi, Neil Cunningham. They're pretty evenly matched, these two. They've had their adventures this year. They've had victory here at Silverstone in changeable conditions on the Grand Prix circuit when they won in the dying moments of the race. But what they're focused on at the moment is whether they can still take second in the championship. I don't think that's going to happen because the Ferrari of Tim Mullen is going well enough here. And after that, it's really holding on to third place and beating the Eurotech Porsche. Been good rivalry between the 2 teams, Rob.
Certainly has. And as we look at Phil Keane in the Mosler, the setup on that Mosler looks superb this weekend. The car's not moving around at all. He made a mistake on the first lap, took too much curb, and that cost him. But from that moment on, the car looks really well settled, and he's driving very well. Now he's settled into his rhythm.
Yeah, Tim Mullen behind him. Surprising, isn't it? The Ferrari can't really do much about closing up that gap. We're back on board with Tim Harvey. Tim's made a couple of appearances in the British GT Championship this year. He's been racing in the British Porsche Carrera Cup throughout most of the season, and running very competitively here at the moment. He's actually in the invitation class, but basically very similar. The car's basically the same as the GT3 cars, just not scoring points in the GT3 Championship. And it's been a close battle with Stuart Mosley throughout this race so far. Mosley is flying at the moment. But also we've got to watch out for Piers Maserati, who's not far behind those two. We're getting into the time of pit stops being made, and Mike Jordan preparing to take over the Eurotech car. Stay with us to find out how he gets on. Welcome back to Silverstone, the final British GT race of 2005. It's being led by the number 35 Ferrari of Andrew Kirkcaldy, and well, he and Nathan Kinch have shared 10 victories already this season. It really has been an outstanding year for the two Scotsmen, driving for Scuderia Ecos, and it looks as though they're going to take another victory here. We're still coming up to the pit stops though, and anything can happen when you get into pit stop territory. On board here with Ben Collins, and the Porsche that was running second in the early stages has dropped to 4th place as a result of Phil Keane and Tim Mullen both getting past him, but still pushing very hard and hoping to stay ahead, in particular of the Eurotech Porsche. And you can see a lot of concentration there on board camera with Ben Collins in the Porsche.
So many times this season we've seen some great onboard footage from that camera in the footwell of the passenger side of the Embassy Porsche, and again you could really get a look at the concentration on Ben Collins' face there as he was coming round Luffield.
Now, in the GT3 class and invitation class, the number 96 car, Stuart Mosley, is leading. Behind him, though, we've got Tim Harvey and Piers Maserati. And Piers Maserati, with a bit of bumper trailing from behind the car, is putting Tim Harvey under a little bit more pressure once again. So there's David Ashburn waiting to take over his car. In jovial mood, had a good run in the wet here, went very well in the wet in race number 1 here at Silverstone. So I wonder what's going to happen when he takes over from Fred Moss. But there we just saw the Mosler go through. Also the Tech 9 car, different drivers in that car this weekend. It's the car that's won the GT3 championship, but Irishman James Murphy is on board.
And James, normally a Formula Renault racer, enjoying his first true taste of dry weather GT racing after his exploits in the wet yesterday.
Yeah, very effective it was. They won the GT3 class. He was driving with Ian McKellen yesterday. Slight change around this time. He's racing with Paul Mace today. But we'll see how he gets on, as you say, in these very different conditions. There is Phil Keane in the Mosler. That car is running in 2nd place, but quite a gap back. And there is Neil Cunningham preparing to take over from Ben Collins in the Embassy Racing Porsche. And they will be desperately hoping to stay ahead of this car, because Michael Caine is jumping out and Mike Jordan is climbing on board. I wonder how this one's going to be resolved. Remember, the two cars had a bit of a coming together in race 1 here at Silverstone.
They did, and it was pretty much 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. There were two cars running very, very close together in a very wet, slippery part of the track, and visibility wasn't great, and they just collided just here, in fact, at Brooklands. Yeah,
Phil Keane there was a bit wide. I know he's got traffic in front of him, and I don't know whether he was caught out, but it looked like a slightly bizarre line.
Yeah, just in a little bit too quick, I think, and maybe he was slightly late on the down change, saw a bit of rubber coming from the rear wheels, but he's pushing hard to get through the back end of the GT3 runners.
So once he's waved away, Mike Jordan sets off down pit road, and Michael Caine now just has to sit back and watch to see how his teammates and team owner gets on with this final stint of British GT this year. The car running very reliably, and there you can just see, interestingly, he comes out virtually with Phil Keane, so he's just about a lap being lost as a result of the complete pit stop.
And in the moment Mike Jordan comes on the track, he's got his headlights on, he'll be pushing hard. Phil goes to the inside as Mike settles down, and I'm sure Mike will do his level best to stay on the back of the Mosler now as he gets into his rhythm.
On board the Ferrari with Shane Lynch at the wheel. This is the car he's sharing with Irishman Hector Lester. And Alan Simonson, remember, has been driving this car throughout much of the year. Not available this weekend. He's busy racing at Bathurst, so Shane Lynch in the car. But into the pits comes the Vauxhall Monaro. Now, I think we'll see James Brodie jumping out and Matt Griffin about to take over. Fantastic to see Matt back racing here this weekend, Rob.
It certainly is. Matt's made a very, very quick recovery from a very nasty leg injury sustained whilst instructing down at Goodwood.
Yeah, it's just good news to see him back and competitive once again. Now, there's another driver change going on there. Richard Hay is taking over from Gary Britnell, and he'll be sent on his way pretty quickly. As meanwhile, the lead group, not the leader, because that's still Andrew Kirkcaldy, but Phil Keane in the Mosler, and then the lapped car of Mike Jordan, because he's made his pit stop, remember. Then it's Tim Mullen, who'll be handing over to Canadian Chris Niarchos in the not-too-distant future, and they'll be looking for a good stop as well. But remember, there is a minimum amount of time they have to sit in the pit, so it's not as if they really rush that driver change. They've got time to take it easy, get everything sorted, and then get the car back on circuit once again. And Tim Mullen after that initial spin, has fought his way back up reasonably well, but it does look as though they're going to go winless this year. They just need to pick up the 1 point here today to make absolutely sure of second place in the championship.
And a little wave there from Tim as Mike Jordan just moved wide and let Tim through, and a nice sporting gesture there from Tim. And the Embassy crew are now getting ready for their pit stop by the look of it, as Anthony Reid comes in the pits to hand over to Michael Bentwood.
Yeah, this Nissan, which joined in the championship this year and has made gradual improvements throughout the season. And we'll see also there coming in, I think, was Phil Keane. Yeah, heading into the pits then, the Eclipse Motorsport Mosler of Phil Keane. Now he fought his way back up to second place. We'll see what happens after the pit stop. James Murphy in the Tech 9 car. Is he staying out? Yes, he is for the moment. He stays out on circuit. And coming into the pits just ahead of him, you can see Shane Lynch. So
he's got a problem there, Ben.
Yeah, that doesn't sound right. Very nasty engine noises.
Sorry, I can't do anything but put a horrible face, but that's Shane Lynch coming in now, and he'll be climbing out, and Hector Lester getting in.
Yeah, so can Hector Lester just gather together a few more points here? Still trying to beat Andy Britnell to second place in the GT3 Championship. Tyre change on the Nissan, but we're waiting for the race leader yet to come into the pits. Andrew Kokotti is making his way in now as he comes out of Luffield. Shane Lynch has completed his stint. I think he'll be reasonably satisfied with his afternoon's work. Get the car in one piece and hand it over to the car owner. But here comes Andrew Kokotti then to hand over to Nathan Kinch, and Scuderia Kos go to work.
And whilst the driver change is being completed, they can't actually change wheels and tyres there, so they're just inspecting the rubber. And Ben Collins coming down pit road now as well.
Okay, look for Andy, put it on the mark, no lock in the wheels, nice and steady.
Being talked into his pit. And of course, Neil Cunningham will be taking over. Let's see if he gets it right. Yeah, pretty good. Clean stop in the correct place. Doesn't bowl over his mechanics. And Neil Cunningham's right there, ready and waiting to take over. Steering wheel is hung up out of the way. And then it's a question of getting him strapped in. Out goes Nathan Kinch. So, a good clean stop for the race leader. Now, what's going on there? We're talking about pushing it forward. Interestingly, yesterday they made a bit of a mistake. They came in too late for their driver change. Fairly keen not to make any mistakes this time because they got a drive-through penalty yesterday. So Ben Collins out of the car, still waiting for Neil Cunningham, and there he goes. So I think that was all okay, Rob.
A little bit of confusion over Neil's seating position, but no, they've released him out onto the track now.
Jordan is behind you. Jordan is behind you. He is the next car on the road.
Well, getting himself a bit psyched up there, and an important piece of information to Neil Cunningham. Jordan is behind you. That is the Porsche that they're battling with for third place, remember, in the championship. They'll want to keep him behind. Now, into the pits comes Tim Mullen. If it hadn't been for that spin on the opening lap when he got squeezed out of space at Cobb's Corner, well, who knows, perhaps these two guys would be on for a race victory and at least close up with Nathan Kinch here. But as it is, they're still on for a good podium finish, and Chris Niarchos will be taking over that other Ferrari. Here is Nathan Kinch, who's driven superbly well this year, backing up all the exploits of Andrew Kokotti, and he comes around with a good, clear advantage as his teammate sits in pit lane and is ready to go back out in a moment.
Very easy to overlook the two recovery drives from both the Mosler and from Tim Mullen when you consider that they were both down right at the foot of the field and they came right back to P2 and P3. Very good job from both Phil and Tim.
Tim, what happened at the start?
I got shoved off, that's what happened. Got a good start. I think was slightly ahead of Andrew when we went to break into the corner, and then I couldn't slot in behind Andrew because I'm not sure who was, I think it was Michael was maybe in behind him, so I couldn't slot in, so I had to try and stick it out around the outside, and Andrew shoved me a bit wide, and then someone else gave me a tap in the rear corner, and that just spun me clean off. So ended up on all the, the extra tarmac bit on the outside where all the pickup was, so it took a long time to get rid of all the pickup on the tires, and then I just come back through the field, but I was like, oh no, it's all gone wrong, but I just managed to bring it back. But it's been a bit of a tough weekend, really.
So frustrations for Tim Mullen, and in fact they've had a slightly longer stop than they would have liked. We're on board here with Neil Cunningham in the Embassy Porsche, and I think behind him is still the Eurotech car, and in fact Chris Niarchos I think, has come out behind both Porsches. So it was a slightly, yeah, there is Chris Niarchos, and looks as though he's taking it fairly steady at the moment. We're watching from on board Hector Lester's car, and you can see Hector's actually got a bit of a run on Chris here.
He has, and he's gone by him on the run down into the hairpin, so Chris taking it very, very easy, possibly after his little bit of an over-exuberant first lap at Mondello. But looking at a replay of the start here, we've got the Mosler on our right, Kirkcaldy straight in front of us, Tim to our left, Tim Mullen, and yeah, Tim just loses out to the left-hand side and spins onto the tarmac. Join us for more action after the break.
Welcome back to Silverstone. Tim Harvey jumping out of his car, the GT3 Invitation class, and he was actually leading overall because he hadn't made his pit stop, very late pit stop, but in fact, I think it's too late. They're outside the allocated pit window, and that is not good news at all for the number 19 team, the RPM team. Alex Mortimer taking over the car. Robin Mortimer, team boss there. I'm not quite sure what went wrong. Steve Warburton explaining what's gone wrong with his race as Alex getting ready to come out, but it definitely is quite a late stop for the team.
Real bad luck for Robin Mortimer's RPM team. They've worked so hard to repair those two cars after yesterday's incident in the wet race, and for them to make their stop slightly too late, terrible luck. But on board now with Neil as he comes down into Bridge Corner and then into the complex.
Yeah, oh, and the Mosler's off. Steve Hyde in the Mosler. Oh, what a shame. Phil Keane was driving this car brilliantly in the early stages.
He's in the gravel as well there, Ben. The Mosler's, yeah, beached there. That's really unfortunate.
Oh, what a pity for the whole team as well. They've worked very hard. And off another one. That's a Ferrari. That's Phil Burton in the number 12 car. Car he shares with Adam Wilcox. Oh dear, and that looks equally well beached. I can't really see him getting out of that one in a hurry, can you?
No, that's the exit of Priory, and the gravel there is terribly deep.
Well, Hector Lester in the 21 Ferrari. He's okay. He's staying out of the gravel for the moment. We're riding on board Hector there. He's just going past that area. Lots of yellow flags for him to think about. Working that steering wheel pretty hard, isn't he? Jiggling away at it.
He has a quite unique fashion, Mr. Lester. We've enjoyed that on several occasions this season, and also coming down into that yellow flag zone is now the race leader, Nathan Kinch.
Yeah, now Nathan Kinch is driving a good, sensible race. You can see he's early on the brakes there. He's not going to throw away his large advantage here by getting into trouble by not slowing down under yellows. Now, in the number 96 car is Phil Quaife. He's taken over from Stuart Mosley. They've been front runners in the GT3 class throughout this race. Just going past Rory Fordyce, who's taken over from Piers Maserati. Not really on quite the same level of pace as Maserati. Now, that Mosler's been pushed out of the gravel. That's a good effort from the Marshals. It's not a light car, but just look at the amount of gravel it's distributing on track.
Oh, that's 1,000 kilos of Mosler pushed out there by 4 Marshals. That's very impressive.
They had their Weetabix this morning, didn't they? But it's a good effort to get them on circuit once again. And there in Neil Cunningham, running in second place at the moment. Mike Jordan, his big rival in the other Porsche, is running third. There you can see the gap is not that great. So Neil Cunningham better watch himself here. Can't afford to make any little mistakes in the latter part of this race.
That was the Monaro slowing on the left-hand side there at Maggots, but Neil and Mike both making it through there without losing any time. And if anything, Mike Jordan just edging closer now to the Embassy car ahead of him.
Well, it's always great having a target to chase, and that's exactly what Mike Jordan has here. A great opportunity to try and claim the place. But, in fact, the Embassy car could finish just behind the number 77 car, and still the drivers would take third place in the championship. That Monaro really struggling, and he's just trying to get out of the way. He's pulled right off the track now. And also in trouble, the Mosler. We saw it go off into the gravel, and Steve Hyde has brought the car in.
And whether the Eclipse Motorsport mechanics are looking for any gravel damage or gravel trapped in the back of the car there, I don't know. They're just having a very good look underneath the engine cover.
Well, look how close now Mike Jordan is to the back of Neil Cunningham. This is all getting very, very tight indeed. And Michael Caine, who drove this car earlier on, is in the pits right now with Diana.
Michael, you're running strongly in that race.
Yeah, we are. I mean, at the end, we are, but we're not really. I mean, at the end of the day, we want third in the championship, and they're playing a good team game, and they'll probably get third in the championship. But let's just hope and pray something goes wrong. Not being malicious or anything, but you know, let's just hope that we can still get third in the championship.
On board with Neil Cunningham. Oh, and he's having a quick look in his mirrors. You can almost feel the tension coming off him, because that's how close Mike Jordan is to getting past. Well, getting past might not be enough They really need a problem for that Embassy car, as Michael Caine was telling us. But here comes Mike Jordan's chance into bridge. Not quite.
No, not quite far enough alongside before they actually turned into the corner. But Mike having another look at Priory now. He's using all the grass on the inside there at Priory, and as he comes down into Brooklands, he'll close up on the brakes again. And Neil under a huge amount of pressure now by the immensely experienced Mike Jordan.
Yeah, but Neil Cunningham will be under strict instructions, I'm sure, from his team to stay in front, even if he could sit behind and take that third place in the title battle. The team won't want that. They want to stay in front of the Eurotech car. So great rivalry going on between the two teams here down towards Copse. Any sign of Mike Jordan? No, so he's safe again for the moment. Into the pits comes Michael Benchwood in the Nissan, and this is an unscheduled stop, so it looks as though there may be problems with that car. Meanwhile, on circuit, Chris Niarchos in the number 34 Ferrari. He's currently running in 5th place, but he's very close behind the number 22 Porsche, currently being driven by David Jones. There might be a chance to retake 4th. Remember, he did have a slower pit stop, but still in pretty good shape in terms of the championship, Rob.
They are. Oh, and as we expected, Ben, car 19, that's the Mortimer Harvey car coming in for a drive-through penalty. In fact, no, it's a stop-go, so they'll bring him to a stop in the penalty box. He rejoins, so I'd estimate that's going to cost them maybe 25 seconds to this car, the class-leading car of Stuart Mosley and Phil Quaife.
Yeah, Phil Quaife at the wheel at the moment, so looking good for the win in the GT3 class. That stop-go penalty for stopping outside the pit stop window. They were just a moment or two late into the pit lane, so they are still on for a decent result, though, despite losing that time. Look at Mike Jordan. Where's he going? Off to Toaster or what?
Possibly. He was pushing so hard as he came through Copse, just ran wide onto the outfield there, and Chris Niarchos now putting David Jones under a lot of pressure into the hairpin.
Yeah, he is, and they're about to be lapped. Look at this by Nathan Kinch. Kinch driving very smoothly, totally untroubled. He was handed a good lead by his teammate Andrew Kirkcaldy, and he stayed out of trouble so far. But David Jones, as you say, has got to watch his mirrors here, because Chris Niarchos is on the lunge. He's down the inside. Well, David gave him plenty of room on that occasion, and Chris Niarchos has gone through into 4th. Now, Hector Lester is about to be lapped here, I think, by Phil Quaife. Hector still on for scoring some useful points in GT3, but I don't think it's enough for Hector to finish 2nd overall in the championship, because Andy Britnell is going to outscore him. Just going through, there goes Phil Quaife on the inside. No great dramas for him to be able to do that. But Hector here still holding on to what is 6th place in GT3 class, so he should do enough to hold on to 3rd in the GT3 championship overall. The Morgan of Oliver Bryant, Keith Arlers, is 1 place further up the road, but they needed to be further ahead than that for Ollie Bryant to beat him in terms of the points. Bit of excitement down there on the pit wall as the Embassy car currently stays in 2nd place, and Neil Cunningham still managing to fend off Mike Jordan. Nathan Kinch is the one with the very healthy advantage out in front, but Embassy are determined to hold on to 2nd.
And that little mistake on the exit of Copse the last time through has cost Mike Jordan. He's dropped back by about a second from this car, Neil Cunningham.
You can hear him panting a little bit on the microphone. There's a bit of a sweat there. Neil is working very hard.
He is, and he's not as young as he used to be.
Well, he still attacking, still pushing, still an odd glance in the mirror, but it's not quite the same pressure he was on earlier on in this race. Gives you an idea just how physical these cars are to drive, Rob. Sometimes it might look easy, but it's pretty hard work.
Oh no, these drivers, especially in these sort of conditions, are pushing very, very hard. Temperatures in the car are quite high, particularly if you're in a front-engine car like the Morgan or a TVR, and no, drivers working very, very hard for prolonged periods of time.
That's right, these are 1-hour races, remember, but we are getting into the closing stages. Here is Neil Cunningham. He is top Porsche in this race, and looks as though he's going to finish, he and Ben Collins, as top Porsche in the championship, although here is the race leader. It's Nathan Kinch, already champion, of course, with Andrew Kirkcaldy, and set for their 11th win of the season. And they're the Embassy car, the only car, in fact, that has beaten that Ferrari throughout the year. They've won twice, both at Knockhill and here at Silverstone on the Grand Prix circuit. But Nathan Kinch and Andrew Kirkcaldy have won every other single race in the series. Mike Jordan third, Chris Niarchos in 4th place, and that will be enough for the other Ferrari to claim 2nd place. For Scuderia Cos, Rob, this has just been a most amazing year.
It has. They've had some terrific performances. For me, Andrew Kirkcaldy taking pole position in every single qualifying session he's competed in has been a highlight.
Yeah, he's the winner of the Super Pole Award for doing that, and very impressive it's been. Still on board here with Neil Cunningham. He's just picking his way past some of the GT3 and Invitation class contenders. You can see just behind the John Guest car, number 77 of Mike Jordan, but he's not going to be close enough to challenge on this final lap, I'm sure, unless Cunningham makes a mistake. And already at the final corner at Luffield is Nathan Kinch. The checkered flag awaits, and it's the end to a dominant season for Kinch and Kirkcaldy. They win again here at Silverstone. 11 wins out of 13 races. What a tremendous record, and the team will be celebrating once again tonight because they've also taken up that runners-up position with the other car, the number 34 car, but finishing second and top Porsche, it's the embassy car of Neil Cunningham and Ben Collins, and that means a lot to the team.
Fantastic. Well done, mate. Brilliant.
Celebrations there, and more celebrations for Phil Quaife and Stuart Mosley as Phil comes through to take the win in the GT3 class, second going to Fred Moss and Dave Ashburn, and third to Andy Britnell and Damien Faulkner, which is good news for them in terms of the championship. So the results, seeing Kinch and Kirkcaldy take the win again, but Cunningham and Collins beating Jordan and Kane after a season-long battle. It's been great fun between the two of them. And the race victory in GT3 going to Mosley and Quaife. But no doubt about it, Nathan Kinch very happy after another win here at Silverstone.
Nathan, many congratulations. Another strong drive from the two of you today.
Yeah, it was fantastic. The car was good all weekend. I'd like to thank the team for doing a fantastic job all season. We finished every race, finished the podium every race, and this win really goes out to them. But Andrew did all the work at the start, and I just had to maintain the gap, really not take any risks. The car was quite tricky at the end, a lot of rubber on the tyres, but it was good.
Neil, many congratulations. Was that a rewarding drive today?
Yes, we needed a second place. That puts us second in the team championship and also ties up our third in the drivers' championship. So teamwork was wonderful, and it was great to beat Mike. I have a lot of respect for Mike, and he always, I mean, it's always the other way around. He always beats me, but today I was going to give it to him as much as I could.
Yeah, they pushed you all the way. You clearly enjoyed it.
Yes, I did. Yeah, I got out of shape a few times, but Mike was very fair in the corner, so it was great racing.
It's been a good driver pairing between yourself and Ben this season.
Yeah, Ben's kept me very honest, kept the whole man very fit and fast. So yeah, so it's been great.
So the final results of 2005. Kinch and Kirkcaldy the champions ahead of Mullen and Niarchos, and Collins and Cunningham just took back third place from Jordan and Kane in the end. In GT3, Maserati and Tavaricos were champions ahead of Andy Britnell, with Hector Lester also picking up some silverware for his work in the Ferrari. But what a season it's been for Ferrari in British GT.
Well, that's it from Silverstone. Andrew Kirkcaldy and Nathan Kinch leave as the 2005 British GT champions. Well, we hope you've enjoyed all of the race action that we've brought you, and hope you join us again next year. Until then, bye-bye.